Donald Trump has, unfortunately for Americans, once again completely embarrassed himself and by extension embarrassed the United States on the world stage at yesterday's speech that he gave in front of the United Nations General Assembly. Now, as a speech, it was horrendous, extremely low energy. It was that mumbling, stumbling Trump that often appears to be coming down from uppers, as I've mentioned before, that showed up to yesterday's speech. Now, hilariously, there were actually some journalistic descriptions of the speech that called it sober and respectful, which are the most polite possible words that you can assign to downer Trump, the version of Trump that shows up when he is in that coming down from uppers sort of mode that we've identified before. Now, of course, Donald Trump used a teleprompter, which also helps to keep Trump in that low energy mode, something, remember, he made fun of Barack Obama for using when Barack Obama was president. It turns out, I guess, that using a teleprompter and being able to read leads to far better speeches than using a teleprompter and struggling to read, which is what Donald Trump does every single time he uses that prompter. But it wasn't just the style of Trump's speech that was atrocious. The content of the speech was disgusting as well. This was one of the most nationalist speeches that Donald Trump has given, criticizing countries that, in his view, treat the U.S. unfairly, talking about being against globalism and for patriotism, which is once again this tired anti-Semitic trope, throwing in some awkwardly worded deference to things like treating people well and valuing differences, which we have no evidence that actually suggests Trump believes or even thinks is important. Once again, downer Trump is the guy that showed up. This is the one that appears to be coming down from uppers, slurring, doing the sh thing when S's exist in words, appearing to chew on his own teeth, stopping, looking confused at the words on the teleprompter. Take a look.
The world fully expects that the Chinese government will honor its binding treaty. It is time for Iran's leaders to step forward. America is ready to embrace friendship with all who genuinely seek peace. The receiving countries are overburdened with more migrants than they can responsibly accept. Nations that empower women are much wealthier, safer, and much more politically stable. Americans will never fire or tire in our effort to defend and promote freedom. Liberty is only preserved, sovereignty is only secured. Yesterday, I was also pleased to host leaders for a discussion about an ironclad American commitment.
Extraordinarily strange behavior. I mean, just again, genuinely strange behavior that I've heard no reasonable explanation for so far. Let's look at another moment from the speech here where Donald Trump does his globalism bad, patriotism good thing.
A free world must embrace its national foundations. It must not attempt to erase them or replace them. Looking around and all over this large, magnificent planet, the truth is plain to see. If you want freedom, take pride in your country. If you want democracy, hold on to your sovereignty. And if you want peace, love your nation. Wise leaders always put the good of their own people and their own country first. The future does not belong to globalists. The future belongs to patriots. The future belongs to sovereign and independent nations who protect their citizens, respect their neighbors, and honor the differences that make each country special and unique. It is why we in the United States have embarked on an exciting program of national renewal.
We're not globalists, but we are patriots. Now, as I mentioned already, extremely low energy, so low energy, in fact, that one of Donald Trump's cabinet secretaries slept through the speech. We'll talk about that a little bit later. but more importantly, looking awful, sounding awful, and the content being ridiculous. The entire criticizing globalists thing has an ugly anti-Semitic past, whether or not Donald Trump knows that, whether or not Donald Trump is deliberately referencing it for that reason. But it's a dog whistle for Jews that has been around for a very, very, very long time. But it's important not to miss the bigger picture here, which is that the United States is increasingly not part of the serious and important conversations that world leaders around the world are having, trying to solve some of the big problems of our time. The big picture is that Donald Trump's reference to an anti-Semitic trope shouldn't be allowed to distract us from an increasingly cornered and backpedaling Donald Trump on his excuses for why he would withhold the hundreds of $millions in aid from Ukraine because he wanted them to smear Joe Biden while suppressing a whistleblower. And in the end, it becomes difficult to even figure out which ridiculous public embarrassment or crisis is meant to be a distraction from some other, sometimes even worse, ridiculous public embarrassment. But embarrassing himself on the world stage is something that has become, unfortunately, all too common under this presidency. I know that the Trumpists don't agree with me, and I know that they also don't care what other countries think about Trump. And in fact, they become emboldened when they hear that other countries are not even including Trump in conversations about climate change, for example. Other countries are not even including Trump in conversations about how can we get Iran back into compliance with the Iran nuclear deal, particularly given that Trump bailed on the deal without Iran having actually broken any of the conditions of that deal. And when we look at the coverage of something like the UN General Assembly here in the United States, we understandably have a very Trump-centric view, either people who love what Trump did or anybody who has a good head on their shoulders and realizes the embarrassing nature of what Trump did. In other countries, it's not just that they are much more unanimous in their understanding that what Trump said is ridiculous. It's arguably even worse, where it doesn't even really matter what Donald Trump is doing and saying, because other countries are increasingly not even including the United States in important conversations about so many of the issues that are facing humanity right now. And that's the real tragedy that it will take a long time to undo once Donald Trump is no longer president.